But we go back. You're right, Justin. It's very so. Okay, let's concentrate.
In fact, Justin's going to love this because of the stuff I'm talking about. He probably wants me to get going, So look, I'm going to start. And I know I've talked, I talked a little bit about Stan Tracy before. I want to start off because I'm planning to go and do a little thing at Ronnie Scott's. I thought we'd have a look at Stan Tracy, who was he was the house pianist at Ronnie Scott's from about it was about March 1960, to 1968. I don't know the month. It was around 1968 that he left, but he was there as the house pianist for a good 8 years. And the interesting thing about Stan Tracy is because Ronnie Scott's was a sort of premier jazz club in London. It was small, but it was the place everybody went. A lot of the US jazz musicians came over to Ronnie Scott's to play when they were going on tour. So Stan Tracy he played with all the greats, right? All the greats, yeah. And Justin, you're right. This,
name some of them, please.
Milkwood was one of his finest albums. Certainly one of his most well-known albums. And it's very important, this album, because firstly, it's got a great lineup on it. I mean, I keep referring to Bobby Wellings. This is actually my own copy, and I'll show you. Bobby Wellings was the saxophonist on this. He's Scottish, and I actually was very fortunate. I went to Ronnie Scott's for the 50th anniversary of this album, and they had Clark Tracy, who's Stan Tracy's son, who played drums, but they had Bobby Wellings playing sax. He turned up, and I managed to meet him, and it was very good of him that he actually signed my copy here.
Oh, nice.
To Dave, all the best, Bobby Wellings, you see. And nice. If you listen to, you must listen to this album because some of the tracks on it are just so beautiful. And Stan, Stan he worked super hard. He didn't earn a lot of money. He had problems with drugs, but at the same time, he was our best jazz pianist. So he had some really, really huge admirers. So, for example, Sonny Rollins, Sonny Rollins said about Stan Tracy, he said, "Do you know how good this guy is?" Yeah. And if you get the Americans of that magnitude talking about a British pianist like that, you're in a good place, right? So,
what kind of jazz are we talking about here?
Modern jazz, sort of British modern.
Model.
It's
modern. Okay, no, not model. Okay, modern.
No, not modal. No, so a modern jazz style, British style. It's got quite a distinctive sound. I mean, again, they love the American jazz musicians, the small group, the trios, the quartets, and they look to mimic that, but doing it in their own way. So, and
what year are we talking here?
1965. This album, 1965. So yeah, I mean, it's just such a great album, and I'd highly recommend it to people. I'm going to show some other. Talking about Stan Tracy, I want to show some of his other records as well.
Before you go on, can I ask you something?
Of course you can.
When you're talking about this British jazz, is it what would you say? Is this more orientated at the US jazz of the time, or has it been similar in Great Britain like you have in Germany and other countries of Europe, that they tried to develop their own kind of specific?
It definitely had its own style. Yeah, they didn't copy the American. Obviously, they looked up to the American jazz musicians because that was seen as the top tier. But I would say, the British jazz guys, they did develop their own unique style. And you've got to remember, back in the mid 50s, this sort of music was seen as it was almost like the underground. This was like the underground music of the time. Particularly the modernist style, the small group, the smoky. You got to think about the Smoky Basement Jazz Club in Soho in London, and this is where all this came from. You see,
wonderful record.
Yeah, it's beautiful. This is Stan Tracy's first album, Showcase, on Vogue, and again, this is I mean, look, it's in beautiful condition.
Yeah,
I love this album. It's so good, and I love these old Vogue records. Vogue, Tempo. They're all like Decca pressed. I'll show you the label as well. As you can see, got a lovely original Decca inner sleeve there. And I'll show you the label. But yeah, this was Stan's first album.
nice.
There we go. Beautiful label, isn't it?
Wonderful, wonderful. So, but this is before, but not long before all those American jazz giants comes over here to Europe, because in
Yeah,
the
this
US,
would have been around. I mean, they were coming over in the 50s and early, certainly throughout the early 60s. Obviously later 50s, because it was kind of the whole modernist thing was new in
hmm
the 50s, so it took
hmm
a bit of time. And the big ones did come over and play at Ronnie Scott's. So I mean, I would have loved to have been around at that time to be able to go and experience that, because the problem is it's simply something that you can't do now. It's not
hmm
possible to go to sound. The reason I've got the older ERC Thelonious Monk's music here is because Thelonious Monk was one of Stan Tracy's biggest influences. You see,
hmm
so you got to look at the whole picture here. He
They
liked.
ever met in, did they ever meet in person? Met in person?
Yeah, they did at the club, So at Ronnie Scott's, so Duke Ellington as well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to remember that they had these. There was this whole scene that was going on,
hmm
and the British guys, the British jazz musicians, they just soaked it all up and they took it and then they put their own stamp and their own style on it, and that created this whole Soho jazz scene that went on. And it was very difficult. They didn't. It was so underground. They didn't earn a lot of money, but it
hmm
was so culturally important in this country. And people are looking back now and going, "Oh yeah, some of these records are amazing." So
hmm
yeah, really, really, really cool. Yeah, I love. Oh, I want to show a couple more. In fact, this one's in the shop, so I'm just going to point this out because this one is a very rare one. The New
Nice.
Departures Quartet, and this is this. You got Stan Tracy and Bobby Wellens featuring again.
Yeah,
So this is this famous, really famous quartet.
yeah.
Stan Tracy's Under Milkwood that I just showed you, and this was an album. This was actually an original one put out on Transatlantic. The New Departures, yeah, super good album, super good album. And again on the famous, and you know how much, guys, that I like this label, the Transatlantic.
Yeah.
Here we go with the purple and white textured label. They just sound fantastic, and yeah, again they just really sum up a time, So huge fan of Stan Tracy. Let's put it that way. I am, and there's others as well. There's other albums, but I just wanted to show those three because I think they're for
How
me.
how is the situation nowadays when you want to get them and you live in the UK? I can imagine
Well,
that the
these
biggest.
are really rare.
Mm,
I mean, I think if you look now, and I haven't looked, yeah, but if you
mm,
looked on Discogs, for some of the Under Milkwood you would be able to get, but
mm,
certainly the New Departures and the showcase, I doubt there's any copies, or maybe one, but there's probably nothing because they are
mhm.
rare. These albums do not turn up very often at all in the UK.
And probably, as you just told us, that it was difficult to them at the time, so they probably didn't do that many
They wouldn't
copies,
made
right?
many of these. I mean,
Mm, mm,
I was very lucky. I spoke to one of the sort of famous producers
yeah.
of a lot of the early British jazz, Tony Hall, and you'll see his name if you look at Tempo Records. You will see, yeah, man. I'm just going to cover this. Actually, you're
Mm,
right. There are small
mm,
pressing numbers, but
mm.
Tony Hall. I spoke to him on the phone. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he was
Mhm.
also the producer of Black Sabbath. Yeah,
Okay.
he went on to really big things, but he was the guy behind a lot of the early British jazz recordings and cutting to vinyl and getting it done. And he said to me on the phone, he goes, "Oh, Dave, back then we didn't sell many records. We would get the presses fired up at Decca just to do a run of 300 to 500. Right?
Wow.
Think about those
Imagine that.
numbers, Michael.
Mm.
300 to 500. Some of those tempo records, yeah, 300 to 500 copies. So
And
there's not.
compare that to the numbers Blue Note and Prestige and Impulse did. This is a completely different ball game then,
Oh
right?
yeah, massively. Yeah, and that's why they're so rare. You don't.
Mhm,
Even in the UK, you can't just go out and find these records.
mhm,
They're not sitting down the road. They
mhm,
are rare.
mhm.
That I might come across a copy of that once every 5 years. It's something like that. That's how rare these are.
Wow.
And
Wow.
even this one, yeah, his first album, that's impossible to find. So they're yeah. I mean, they just didn't. There wasn't the demand there at the time. They were done. Some of them. I mean, I know for a fact that a lot of these records, there was a famous Doug Dobell's jazz shop on Charing Cross Road, and some labels would just make records and just sell them through that one shop on Charing Cross Road, because it was just by Soho. You know, it's just by where the scene was happening. So you had to go to a specific.
And again, Dave, we need a time machine. Let's go there.
If I had a time machine and got back to Doug Dobell's shop, I would nail the door shut and buy the whole place. I'd buy the whole place. Yeah, I'd be like, no, these are all mine. Okay, no one else is to buy any.
Nobody enters this shop now. It's mine.
No, I'll get Albanian security on the door to keep everybody out while I deal with the business inside. Anyway, yeah. So it was like that back then, and you know, there was one record shop that you could get a lot of these records, and that was the only place. So it sort of shows you the scale of it all. It was small, and that's why, you know, now people are finding these and going, oh, it's, you know, the music's great, and it really takes you back to a different era. You know, that's the thing I love about this. This is a window.
You have this so strong when it comes to jazz, and also this modern jazz.
Yes,
you have it in Scandinavia, you have it in Germany, you have it in France. It's
in
unbelievable.
Denmark as well.
In Denmark,
yeah, you know, there was some scenes going on, and you're right. You know, in Sweden, it was really, you know, they thankfully, luckily, we have cultured people out there that really, it obviously connected very much intellectually with them, culturally and musically, and they got it. So these are, you know, there was this scene among these countries, that the ones you mentioned, along with the UK and London, you know, and it's just a really good thing that we can now go back and explore this and sort of see what was,
and that's what I meant at the beginning. But I think that's later, that really some jazz giants came here to Europe. They lived in Paris, they lived in London,
Paris was huge,
they lived in Berlin, Copenhagen. A lot of them lived in Copenhagen. It's huge.
Yes,
it's huge what happened at that time.
They were really appreciated here. You're right, and some of them did move over, you know, to Europe and play over here on a regular basis. You know, but we were very fortunate in that regard.
Yes,
very fortunate. In fact, I've got a couple more I'm going to show just while I'm on the theme of Ronnie Scott's. Yeah, these are from my personal collection. I'm not selling these. I just want to show them.
Cool.
But I love these. These are very, very early Esquire records. Yeah. So this would probably be from about I don't think it's even dated on here. Probably 1953 or 54, something like that. But look, Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club, Volume 3, and this is a very early Esquire LP. It's 32-003, so the third record on Esquire. And look at that. I love that. Look, complimentary copy for me. And the sleeves.
Oh, the sleeve is like an envelope.
Yeah, it's like, look, I'll show you. So it's beautiful. Look at this. So it's like an envelope sleeve. They only did these with the very early ones, and it's, you know, this is basically a picture of Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club. Yeah. In that sort of mid, let's have a little look at the label. Actually, I'll try it again. I was trying to pick the date off my head, but we'll see. Let's have a little look here. We can explore it together. So there we go. Look, I was right. Look, 54. If you look at the bottom, it says 17th of the 5th, 54. Ronnie Scott's Jazz Group. Yeah, and look, you got Jimmy Duker, Ken Ray, Derek Humble, Ronnie Scott, Fred King. Benny Green, I love Victor Feldman, Lenny Bush, and Tony Crombie. So, you know, this is a picture of that club in 54. Yeah, that's really early, right? Yeah. Really early. You know, that would have been right at the start. Right. At
the Second World War hasn't been far away.
No, not far away at all. And that whole modern, you know, you got to think Charlie Parker was sort of seen as, you know, the godfather of this modern jazz style. So we're looking 1948, 49. So early. So in the early 50s, you would start to get it becoming
the 10-inch hasn't been gone for that long at that time, right? It's
yeah. I mean, it's just
12-inch was a relatively new format in 54.
Well, yeah, the first vinyl records in the UK were the first 33 and a third RPM vinyl records were June 1950. Yeah, June 1950. It was earlier in the USA. Yeah, the USA was in the very late 40s. So, but it was June 1950 in the UK because
Excuse me for a minute.
that's okay.
Friedrich has stolen something. I have to take it away from you. Excuse me for
You
a
being
second.
naughty. But yeah, I've got this one here, and I'm going to show another one as well. So I've got two of these volumes, and this again is another. I just like them because of the photos that you get of a young Ronnie Scott as well. So here's another one. This is the volume 4 from the Ronnie Scott Jazz Club, and as you see, it's got a great photo. This is this is the catalog number 32-006. So again, we're looking super early Esquire here. Again, we've got this with envelope type sleeve, which I just love those. Yeah, just beautiful. And let's have a look at this one. When was this dated? It's probably, again, we're probably going to be looking at 54 because it's so early. Let's have a little look here. When are we talking about?
So no misunderstandings, by the way. Those are Dave's copies, and those are not for the shop in this case.
Yeah, look, this one's, look, it's 7th for the 5th, 50. I think that's 54 there. Hold on, let me get the focus.
Do you remember when you got them?
Yeah, I've had these for years. In fact, this one, it's interesting. If you look at the lineup on this one,
Yeah.
we've also got Phil Seaman on there. Phil Seaman was one of the best British jazz drummers there was. He was totally outstanding. You know, different league. So again, I just love this whole window into this world, which would have been amazing to experience for real. But the only way we can really get close to it these days is by records like this. You see, so yeah, really nice.
And again, some records I can imagine that are not to get with the finger snip, and you see them quite not quite often. Right?
No, we're not. These earlier Squires, again, you don't see them very much at all. Not particularly not in nice condition. They tend to be these ones from the mid. You know, this was probably, if it was recorded 54, these were probably issued in 55, early 1955. And yeah, I mean, they've really been through the mill, some of these. Yeah.
Question,
Steve, though, these are vinyl. Yeah, so they're not shellac. There are, with jazz, there are some very rare shellac records. I've got some. So the Tempo is one of my favourite British jazz labels. I'll show some of those as well. And Tempo, along with Vogue, actually, they did make 10-inch shellac records. And I've got some of the the modern jazz ones like Don Rendell, Dizzy Reese. Yeah, I mean a Tubby Hayes as well. There's a Tubby Hayes. I've got a little pile of the shellacs, but obviously you need equipment that can play them at 78 RPM and the correct type of stylus to handle those. You see, so yeah. But Michael, we could open up a can of worms if we start talking about 78s, which I can do. I'll do that. And maybe we have to not today, but that's something for another day. Yeah.
Dave, are there some of those albums? Did they get a decent reissue?
I don't think those. I think the Under Milkwood has. I think there was an issue of that on Jasmine. I believe I'd need to look up. As you know me, I'm kind of a first edition guy, but I know some of the big ones like that would have done. I'm not sure about the Showcase. I don't think that on Vogue has been issued, and I'm pretty certain that the earliest Squire Ronnie Scotts would not. There may be CDs of them, but not vinyl issues. Yeah. So yeah, well, that's interesting. So hold on. So Drum VC, right? Okay, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, look, Phil Seaman was he was really one of the special drummers that we had over here. There was another one, actually, I'll show you. Another really good jazz drummer who was one of the early. This is actually in the shop, this one, but I just want to show it. Tony Crombie, yeah. So he was Tony Crombie Atmosphere, and with as we all know, the lovely gold EMI stereo.
Oh, you see it, you get it, right?
It's that, yeah, with these. Now he was again one of the, I would say, one of the renowned leading jazz drummers of the modernist. They're called the modernist era. So yeah, so he was another great one, and he didn't make. He only made. I know this album. He featured on other albums, but this was one where he was a lead, and yeah, it's absolutely super. And it's again a very early stereo copy. It's got the you know, the original Columbia EMI Ematex in the sleeve, and then it's got the famous, as we know, because I know I bang on about these a lot, but the famous Columbia green and silver or turquoise and silver label there, stereophonic, and you know, as stereophonic records go, these are some of the best that have ever been made with this label. So they're the top
looks
tier.
Like new once more. It looks like
they're like, yeah, this one's from my personal collection, so I popped that in. But yeah, Tony Crombie, it's important to mention because Phil Seaman was very well known, but Tony Crombie was one of our early modern jazz experimenters, and he was really pushing the scene back then, so kind of quite important, along with you know, there's other artists as well. And again, Stan Tracy was kind of key to all of this going on, you know, and the Ronnie Scott Jazz Club was very key to all of this going on.
So is he like the Charlie Parker of the scene? Yeah, right. This Stan Tracy.
Look, it's when you start to try and, you know, Charlie Parker's seen as an absolute, you know, legend, right? But the whole British thing was massive here. But of it, you know, and actually they did do it. Ronnie Scott, you know, he did do a tour of the US. They went over there, the British jazz guys, in 1957 and played. And Tubby Hayes, they actually did a record over there. There's actually a record that you can get over there. I can't. I think it might be on Savoy. Yeah, the label Savoy. And yeah, of the, you know, those boys went over and they did their thing, which is great. You know, they were accepted, and likewise, it was a reciprocal thing with the American jazz musicians coming over here.
You already mentioned it, but did the drug problems as massive as in the USA, and also heroin?
Yeah, yeah. Phil, well, let's talk about Phil Seaman. Massive heroin problem.
Okay.
You know, there's legendary stories about these guys because you know, in fact, Stan Tracy, his wages were so low, right? He had to get something called the workman's bus. And after he played at Ronnie Scott's, he used to get the bus at 3 a.m. because he couldn't afford. He didn't have a driver. He couldn't afford a cab. He had to go and get the workman's bus to get back to his home. And you know, it's really sad. When you think about these artists, they call jazz the reluctant art because it's not a big paid, you know, but particularly back then. You know, obviously the real top high end. The legendary musicians, you know, your Miles Davises, you know, the bit, you know, or you know, you had to be there in order to make a living from it properly. These guys, they struggled. They constantly struggled. Ronnie Scott, there's a great documentary about Ronnie Scott, and he talks in it. He goes as a club. He goes, we were always in debt. We always had the tax man after us, but somehow we managed to work our way through. Yeah. And that's this jazz, you see, that's what it's about. But you know, what they managed to come out with musically was beautiful. So yeah. One more record. This I've got a little bit more jazz to talk about, but just another record that I love, the Tubby Hayes Down in the Village. And Tubby Hayes was our best ever saxophonist, pretty much. You know, he was the most famous of our British jazz musicians with Ronnie Scott. And you know, there's two records that are beautiful. You got Down in the Village and Late Spot of Scots, and they were both recorded at the Ronnie Scott Jazz Club. You see, look, recorded live at Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club here. And this is a Fontana, and again, this really sums up the era. You've got Tubby Hayes, Jimmy Duker, Gordon Beck on piano, Freddie Logan, and Alan Ganley on drums. Brilliant. And this.
Again, and with this guy, with this Tubby Hayes, now same story.
Yes, he died. He died of drugs. Yeah,
you know, he looks like a school teacher.
Yeah, but he had a huge drug problem. Unfortunately, he he was a genius musician. You know, he could play
Yeah.
the vibraphone. He
Yeah.
played different. You know, he was this super. But again, he had this. They're all you know they're in basements in Soho at these smoky jazz clubs till 3 a.m. They were doing drugs. You know, so they all did it, and he was one of the most famous. You know, one of the most famous.
Wow.
Yeah. So very very cool. Very very cool. Now I want to talk about another jazz musician. That's maybe a bit less known, a little bit off the radar, but again, who is excellent. And I'll just pull out the records. So here we go. I want to talk about Harry Beckett. Now, this is an artist that some people might not be so familiar with. Yeah, but he's really important because he was part of this. There was a whole group of Jamaican and Caribbean musicians that came over to London in the 50s. They're called like the Windrush generation. There was the Windrush, the big ship, cruiser liner that came over, and a load of Caribbean, Jamaicans, Bajans. They all came over here to start a new life in the UK. Yeah, and so you've got Joe Harriott was one. You've got Dizzy Reese. You've got Sheikh Keane, and you've also got Harry Beckett. And he's a real under the radar artist, but he was amazing. Yeah, and he was born in Barbados. Yeah, and he started a lot of these musicians. They started to play in army bands. A lot of the American jazz musicians did as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
he played in the Salvation Army band. Yeah, but
Okay.
then he became a resident of the UK in 1954. Yeah, and he basically he forged a huge reputation for himself. He played with Charlie Mingus. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He was really very very important. Yeah, trumpeter. And I've got to say, he played with some of the key musicians over here in the UK. Including Stan Tracy. He played with Ian Carr, Nucleus. The Brotherhood of Breath. Again, these really influential, small, maybe not so well known, but still big. Now, obviously, Stan Tracy is well known, but he played with Ronnie Scott's quintet. He played with John Sermon, who is another very important artist. So, yeah, and I wanted to this sort of cover because his albums, he recorded a few on Philips, and they're stunning. Yeah, they're really. And
Yeah,
also,
those Philips records at that time, they are amazing.
yeah, I'll show this one because I love all Philips records. Philips record pressings are amazing. Yeah, so look, here we go. Let's get that into focus, and you can have a little look here. So it's a classic.
Here
Look,
we are.
this is look. So it's a 1970 album there, and if you look at who you got, John Sermon on there. Yeah, you got Graham Collier, again another really Graham Collier.
Yeah.
Some of his records. If you look at some of the prices now for some Graham Collier records, we're talking 1,000 plus now. So again, he was just one of these super important. He was a bit of a master of the flugelhorn as well, along with Sheikh Keane, who's one of the other artists that I mentioned. So
Okay, Thomas with his eagle eyes has a question for you,
yeah,
Dave.
go on.
Is it David Bowie or is it the Aquatics doing it in the background?
That's quite cryptic. Oh, where's it? Oh, hold on. Where are we?
Maybe the one that's on the
This?
right? Yeah, maybe.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I like Thomas's efforts to try and at least he's had a punt. Yeah, so I will applaud him for that. But he's not along the right line there. But we'll get on to this. Don't worry, because this is part of my next highbrow section. Yeah, so we're gonna move away from the jazz. By the way, I've got this quickly before I go. Got that Mosaics, Graham Collier and Harry Beckett. There's another one, which
Nice.
is a very this album's so rare. It's not on Discogs. Yeah, you're not going to get one on there. Yeah, but there is one in the OBC shop.
Wow.
That's it on the jazz. No more. We're done for jazz today.
Wow, that was amazing. Thanks for all this information. I love it. Yeah, I love it.
That's right. Yeah,
love
we hit some good ones there in the jazz. And what I want to do, sort of like I was talking with this friend of mine in Greece who's he's been a classical dealer for some third. You know, he's one of the first generation of them, and
Mhm.
I learned a lot with him. But I love spoke for 2 hours on the phone this morning. But he's a massive fan of French classical music, French artists, not just French classical music, meaning composers. I'm talking about the French school of musicianship, yeah, that came out of the Paris Conservatoire. And like, I'm a bit of a fanatic about that as well. And we both are. You know, when we get chatting, we just start to play off each other and talking about these rare records. So I've decided just to do 20 minutes. Yeah, we got 20 minutes on really rare classical, right? And
Nice.
very specific. We're going to be looking at French female pianists, yeah, who
Okay.
for me are some of the better. Well, I say French female pianists. A couple of them are not born in France, but they studied at the Paris Conservatoire, so they learnt their trade there. And I'm going
Okay.
to
That
start. And
counts,
I know,
I guess.
Michael, you're going to be loving this because it's going to destroy you. And there's going to be a few of these appearing, but we've got the Ravel
Ah,
with the
I
muffler.
love them. I love
And
them.
I don't think I've properly covered a Discophiles record before.
No, you
So
haven't yet.
this is going to be an education on
Yeah.
Discophiles. In the next 5 minutes, I'm going to tell you about
Hmm.
them. So you know they were a small independent French label.
Hmm.
They started in the late 40s. They were doing 78s, yeah,
Hmm.
78 RPM discs. There's some very rare ones, very difficult to find. They come in these beautiful brown cardboard boxes with a little
Yeah.
label inside, but we're not doing 78 yet. But what I will talk about is their vinyl releases, and this is a very famous one.
Yes.
It's Marcel Mayer doing the piano works of Ravel.
Yeah, and what I do love, also, of course, are those jackets, those linen gold foiled
Well,
jackets.
they're things of beauty.
Yes.
Now, so what's interesting? Let me explain. So,
Hmm.
Discophiles, when they first came out, they actually put them in these celluloid covers with gold print on. You can see the print there at the bottom. See that?
Yes.
Now, these celluloid covers are super rare because you got to remember this record. I think it's probably 1955. They got damaged. They just disappeared. They got broken because they're quite
Hmm.
fragile. They're
Hmm.
quite well, they're not they're brittle, so they quite easily crack. So
Okay.
when you find a Discophiles with a celluloid cover like this, you're in a very good place because what it means is the interior
Yeah.
jacket. Look at that.
Wow.
This is 1955.
Another reissue.
No, I don't do reissues, right? Well,
Okay.
I might do a little bit, but hey. Um, look at this. Look how beautiful it is. I mean, this is
And this
I mean,
is
this is
special.
the sort of thing that gets me very excited because
Not
the
only you, not only.
look at
Oh,
this.
it has a little ring wear. It has a little ring wear.
But the quality on these jackets was phenomenal, and they have, as Michael you mentioned, they have this beautiful sort of linen. It's like a sort of textured linen sleeve, yeah. And they're just, yeah. I mean, they made them so beautifully. And so, just a little bit of information on Marcel Mayer. So, I'm going to tell you, she was one of the best pianists, bar none, that came out of the Paris Conservatoire. Yeah, she um she studied under Alfred Cortot and Marguerite Long, who were two of the preeminent professors there. And there was a group called Les Six with Jean Cocteau, and they were a group of composers in the 20s. And they were culturally super important. I mean, Jean Cocteau,
Hmm.
he was one of the leading surrealists with
Okay.
art. Yeah, you'll know because I'm going to show you some pictures and you'll see. But I'll tell you something. She worked with them, and she was their preferred pianist to
Okay.
play as part of this
Mhm.
cultural scene in the 20s and the 30s. We're talking
Wow.
these guys hanging out in Parisian bistro, on the side, chatting about culture, chatting about music, composing music, doing art. Yeah, and she was their pianist. Yeah, and I've got to say that as far as Ravel goes, this is the reference recording. Well, there's two, so I'm just going to cover another one as well. But out of all the artists, Marcel Mayer is probably the best Ravel recital that you're going to get. All right.
Okay.
So, and I'll
Nice.
show you the labels. So the Discophiles labels, they press them on very thick vinyl. and I mean, I love how beautiful the discs are. The labels, they're so weighty. I mean, we're talking over 180 grams. These. I mean, I'm gonna have to weigh it to find out, but I mean, I reckon this is 200 or more. So, and they're just beautiful records.
They are for sure.
I just love that. Look at that label as well.
Yeah.
It's stunning.
Wonderful.
And yeah, I can't. You know, I'm a big yeah. I'm a big sucker for those, Michael. Whenever I see them, but the thing is, I don't. You know, they don't turn up very often in the UK. I'm actually thinking. I'm actually thinking of doing a little trip to Paris. To meet a friend of mine. In fact, the friend I was talking to, Adam, because we haven't seen each other for a while, and he's saying, why don't we? He's got to go to Paris. So, and he was saying, why don't we do a little record hunt in Paris? And you know,
but Dave, is it not with this label? I looked it up a little bit a year or two ago. But some are quite not so expensive.
Oh
right?
no, very good point, Michael. I just covered your very good point. I mean, that Ravel Marcel, that's expensive. You know, it's one of the most highly regarded ones, and you know, like Lily Krauss as well. Because you know, these records. So that one I just showed you in like the Lily Krauss sets, they are so revered in the Far East. So we're talking in Japan, in South Korea, and in China, mainly Japan, South Korea, because they were into the game a lot earlier. The China now as well, they revere these artists so much. I mean, some of these records they sell for thousands over there. You know, complete. You know, a set of the Mozart sonatas by Lily Krauss. You know, you could be close to 5,000 for that. The violin sonatas, a complete set, maybe 10,000.
Wow.
They're very, you know, but on the flip side of that, going to your point, there's some of the artists, you know, and some really good artists, so like Yves Nat, he's a pianist. Some of his discophiles you can buy for €10, €20, and I would say that's in my book, that's a bit of a bargain, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Just
bargain.
do it, right?
So yeah. But just on this Lay 6, because I just want to show you, and you'll recognise this type of artwork. So this is Jean Cocteau, yeah. There you go. You recognise this.
Yes,
This is a booklet out of a Soraya series, RCA at LSC, and she, you know, this is who she worked with. As that, you know, he wanted her to play their music that they created, and it's this really beautiful stuff. You can see there.
Wow.
Very famous surrealist. So I just love that connection there between the you know, the music world, the art world that was going on in Paris in the 20s. You know, very, very important time. Very, very you know, things were being created. So yeah. Just while I'm on this theme of discophiles as well, I'm going to show you. So this is, I mean, this is extremely rare. So this is, we'll talk about Lily Krauss. Yeah. So I've got a I can barely hold them all up, but I have a complete set of the Mozart violin, the Mozart violin sonatas with Lily Krauss.
The ones that ERC did the box of?
No, well, that was the previous box, Michael. So they did the Mozart piano sonatas.
Yeah.
These are the violin sonatas. Yeah.
Oh.
So these span 8 discs. So normally when you get a discophile, these are how they come. They don't have that celluloid cover on because they get lost, and some of them they didn't do them on anyway. But yeah, as you can see,
and what are the blue numbers on the jackets?
Oh, that I thought that was the previous owner writing them on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the previous owner writing them on. It might be.
So why not? Why not let him?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're referencing there. I mean, you've got you've got the K numbers, which are the references for the sonatas that they are, because there's like a cataloging system. You know, like for Bach, there's is it BWV, and then there's K numbers for Mozart. So it's kind of a referencing thing. But this would have been the previous owner putting those on. I noticed they were quite keen. They've got like a little up here. There's a little Macintosh sticker, which would have been the amplifier to put your settings in for the bass and the treble. Quite like that, actually. And
That's
look
wonderful.
at the date on it. Is that 55? Yeah. Look,
Yeah,
17th of the
55.
12th,
Yeah,
55.
yeah.
Someone was picking their bass and treble settings for this record. That's so
Wow,
cool, isn't it?
it is.
That's so cool.
So
But
that
yeah, I mean
means
that.
also in 55 we had our nerds.
Sorry.
Luck- And luckily also in 55 we had our nerds.
Yeah. Well, very much so. Someone like that, they probably had their little pile of Macintosh stickers, and every record they'd put it on and just put their settings on so they could
Nice.
refer back to it the next time they listened to it.
Mhm.
In fact, it's interesting with classical art. It's something I've observed. I've seen quite a bit where uh, I'll have a record that I'll get the inner sleeve out, and then there'll be a load of dates, and they'll just list the dates of when they've listened to it. Yeah, and to mark how many times it's been listened to. It's actually quite common with classical for people to do this sort of bit of extra annotation. You don't see it with rock and pop LPs as much, but with classical you do. So that's it's an interesting thing. That again, it's
Yeah.
a difference in the perhaps in the approach. That your classical specialist, your classical fanatic wants to have everything kind of like
Neat and in
neat
order.
in order, and that's a difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, this is a set. Just to tell you,
Wow.
this is a set of like eight discs altogether.
Yeah.
So these are
Wow.
impossibly rare, particularly these ones I'm showing here, which they did the first 4 discs in about 55, but then the second part of the set came out much later, maybe 2 years later, something like
Okay.
that, much later in the catalogue. And these ones here, these two, so the DF18,
Wait,
this
I
is
make a big.
187 and 188. These two, these are like ghosts. In fact, I think if you look on Discogs, I
Yeah.
believe that this one isn't even listed. No one's even got it. Although I've got one, it's not. You can't even get it. Yeah,
Wow.
and these two. These are ghosts. They're ghosts. So
Dave,
I quite like showing them.
when and how did you get those?
Well, I've got a lot of contacts in France, yeah, and I connect with people, and sometimes I get a call, and they're saying, Dave, and this is how I got some of the, like I got a couple of the original Pathé Mozart Paris boxes this way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll get a call, and they'll say, oh, we've found this, we found this. Are you interested? And then I will then negotiate a deal and do it. And a lot of the really heavyweight things come like that. I mean, when I've got a great story. So the Mozart box, the famous Mozart Paris box, super rare, very valuable. One time I got 2 calls in 1 week from 2 different people in Paris.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nance, you've seen ghosts. I like that. And I was like, suddenly
Ghostbuster.
being, yeah. See, look, on the OBC, it's the only place where you're going to get presented ghosts. Yeah, there we are. I like
Wonderful.
that's my term. That ghost is a term that I use for those records that are just like Michael. You call impossible. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love a ghost. Yeah, and when you see a ghost, you're blown away. Yeah, so.
But Dave, you broke your rule. Those are violin records, violin editions, right?
Well, they're violin sonatas, but violin and piano. So Lily Krauss features on there. They're violin and piano. So they're kind of called the violin sonatas, but there's piano accompaniment. There's 2, so you got Lily Krauss on piano, and Willy Boskovsky, playing the violin.
I don't think so, Drum VC. I don't think so. In this case, I don't think so.
Well, with that, look, you never know. You never know with me. I like to turn up. We'll see. There might be, you never know. You might see a little bit of Lily Krauss appearing in the OBC shop at some point soon, right? But wait and see. Leave it with me. I want to listen. I just dug these out because I was talking about classical. I just wanted to show some really great. I've got one more as well. I want to show. This again, we're going to stick very strict with the theme here. Going back to this pure. This is again. I'm not selling this, but I just want to give the caveat there. But one of the other most important French pianists for me is Henrietta Fore. And this is an original Decca, a French Decca, Again, this would be 1955 of her playing Ravel piano works. Yeah, just very small selection here, but
Yeah.
very important music. Yeah, you got Gaspard de la Nuit.
Again, what a wonderful cover art, right?
Let me get it
Of
out
this.
the sleeve
Wow.
here, because Michael, you're just going to love the inner sleeve on this one
Mhm.
as well. So I'll show you. This is the original cover.
Nice.
Now, Henrietta Faro was very important. She didn't make many records. I'm only aware of 3 records she made. This one, and there's 2 on Pathé as well,
Hmm.
which 12 inches. But she worked with Ravel, right? She died, I believe, in 1985, but she was born in 1907, and she was pretty much the closest French pianist to Ravel. She worked with him. She was actually the pianist that gave the debut performances for some of his most famous piano works, you see. And Ravel considered her himself, yeah, he considered her the best French pianist for his work, right? So it shows you that these records, I mean, this is this is rare, this record, and
Okay.
particularly in nice condition. You know,
Wow.
this is again something you do not see. It has the original. Look, look at this Decca inner sleeve, a 7 inch
Yeah,
on this printed rice paper. I just love these. Look at that.
of course.
It's beautiful. It
Yeah.
reminds me of the old sandwich bags we used to have
Yeah, exactly,
when we
exactly.
were a kid. It came in this, there's something very sentimental about these things.
Yeah.
And I'll show you the label as well. I mean, yeah, and it is. I mean, without a doubt, the finest performance of this work. The Ravel, the works on here is definitely the best that there is available. And unfortunately, there was a reissue done of this. I believe it was done as a dub off a record. I don't
Hmm.
think it was off the original master tape, but
Okay.
there was a sort of a limited issue done of it. But yeah, I mean, you can't beat an original French Decca of
Of
that,
course.
because it's a piece of history. These are like artifacts. What I'm showing here, they're different level to what we're normally used to. So yeah, what do you think?
Rare, rare records. Interesting. Learned so much, Dave. Thank you very, very much. Very interesting.
As I said, it was going to be a highbrow session tonight, and just to let you guys know, I wanted to, I like doing that, because it's something that I'm really into myself. So I thought I'd do that today. Oh, by the
Yeah,
way, just to keep comments.
yeah, exactly. Ask. Okay, what do we have here?
Clara Haskell, Scarlatti, 11 sonatas. Yeah. Clara Haskell, amazing. She was born in Budapest, Hungarian pianist, but
Yeah.
studied at Paris Conservatoire. And she was renowned for her Mozart, Beethoven, and her Scarlatti. And this Scarlatti is the finest recording of these works. And I knew it. This is actually an American record on Westminster.
Hmm.
I'll just quickly show it, because again, it's a beautiful record, and one that they go crazy for over in the Far East. But yeah, so it's a lovely thick Westminster original pressing, green and
Nice.
gold print label. Very, very beautiful. Very, very difficult to get clean. But yeah, just one that I thought, while on the pianist mood, female pianist, I wanted to show that one as well, because it's a particular favourite of mine. So yeah, wow. I feel I've I've really gone on one tonight.
Wow, that was amazing, Dave. Thanks for sharing.
I'm going, just so that you know, that was a very specific focus stream. But next week I'm going to see Hawkwind on Friday night at the Royal Albert Hall. We've got a box, and so a friend of mine booked the box, so we're going to go and watch Hawkwind in the Royal Albert Hall.
Nice.
I'll tell you, because of that, I'll definitely post some pictures from there into the OBC channel so
Hmm.
people can see.
Do
But
that,
I know,
please.
that what that will do for me, Michael. It will make me want to do a theme on sort of a bit of space rock, but also covering progressive, because we're talking 70s. So I think it will be a space rock prog mashup next week. Yeah.
Let's do
Although
that.
after seeing that gig, I'm just going to be thinking about it all the time. So I have to show a bit of Hawkwind and maybe some other related stuff like that. So there we go.
Woo!
I like that. Look, hey Joe, Dave, do you sleep? I try, but I've been waking up early. I've got so much to do. I've been waking up earlier these days, but hey, that's life. But yeah, no, I do manage to get a bit of sleep. I probably don't work as hard as this man over here because he doesn't seem to sleep at all. This guy,
No,
he's up,
sometimes.
you know. But anyway, hey,
I promised my wife that it will get better next year. I promised, and I have to keep
well,
this.
yeah, you have to keep to that promise, right? There we go. Look, we hit that. Look, that perfect hour. Hey,
We are
we
so
covered so much.
we are such professionals, aren't we?
We covered that. I mean, that jazz, that classical. We can't. I mean, that's madness. Oh yeah,
Yes.
50th anniversary of Space Ritual. That's what we're going to see. He's right. Yeah. So in fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do next week. I'll cover Space Ritual. What I'll do a section on Hawkwind because they sometimes get a little bit overlooked, but really important bands.
Oh,
So
there for sure.
yeah, nice.
Okay,
So,
thank you all for sharing. For Heike, thank you too. We see us latest next week.
indeed, usual time, usual place.
Bye.